You know, I thought about playing a clip from MSNBC where Olbermann starts saying that DHS was right and the best work they've done was this extremism lexicon, but he won't bring up anything really other than the Nazi extremism that they warn about. Listen, people are saying that there's terror on the rise and da-da-da-da-da. No! Listen, back in the 70s and 80s, there were attempts on people's lives all the time. Just because we saw less of that in the 90s and now doesn't mean it doesn't have a history, and it wasn't terrorism back then. It was lone nuts, or really just unorganized groups. And, you know, I've got to read headlines like this out of Yahoo. Holocaust Museum shooting, other recent attacks prove domestic extremism a threat. Well, domestic extremism on a Nazi level or a nut level has always been a threat. There are always going to be crazies out there. But to paint everybody in this report like anti-abortionists or anti-illegal immigrants or lone wolf extremists or hacktivists or anti-technology people is outrageous. Is outrageous. Let me say it again. It's outrageous. And, I mean, they say a month before suspected white supremacist. There's no suspecting. This guy was a white supremacist. A month before the guy walked into the Holocaust Museum Memorial in downtown Washington and opened fire, the Department of Homeland Security warned that domestic right-wing extremists was the most pressing domestic threat in the country. Now, that's just a lie. Number one, that report dated from March, so we're looking at April, May, into June, 2.5, 3 months old, and it only came out in March because we broke it here, and we didn't get any credit for it in the mainstream media, and some people did latch onto it and tell the truth. Let me ask you something. If domestic extremism and Nazis are such a problem in this country, and by the way, you know, I'm not for them, why are we recruiting them for the military? Let me repeat that. Why are we recruiting them for the military? This is out of Salon.com, and it is a 6-page article about how we like to recruit Nazis, and we'll take what we can get in the U.S. military. So, yeah, let's train white supremacist nut jobs with our military. Let's arm them and then bring them overseas to go kill brown people. They'll be more than happy to do it for us, and that's what the military thinks. They're like, these guys are already aggressive. They're already somewhat trained in combat, and they're willing to kill everybody that isn't white. Good thing we're not going into any white nations right now, and we're not ready to clamp down on the American people just yet. But when we do, they'll be good too, because, you know, they'll probably be going after we'll send them to the poorer neighborhoods. We'll send them into the ethnic communities. Neo-Nazis are in the army now. Why the U.S. military is ignoring its own regulations and permitting white supremacists to join its ranks. Again, it's out of Salon.com. On a muggy Florida evening in 2008, I met with Iraq war veteran Forrest Fogarty in the Wing House, a little bar restaurant on the outskirts of Tampa, his favorite hangout. He told me on the phone I would recognize him by his skin head. Sure enough, when I spot a white guy at a table by the door with a shaved head, white tank top, and bulging muscles, I know it can only be him. Over a plate of chicken wings, he tells me about his path into the white power movement. I was 14 when I decided I wanted to be a Nazi. That's lovely. 14, decided to be a Nazi. He says at first high school near Los Angeles, he was bullied by black and Latino kids. Look, I got bullied as a kid too. You know what you do? You punch him back in the mouth. You kick him in the sternum. You stand up for yourself. You don't even understand how many beatings I took in high school. I had a big mouth. You know, some of them deserved, some of them not. But I always stood up for myself. You know, whether I had a big black eye or a swollen face or I came out the loser, I wasn't going to let somebody, you know, physically intimidate me. It didn't matter if it was a group of kids. You know, I'm throwing punches. And I never, you know, that didn't make me hate white people, you know, because I was attacked by white guys. You know what made me hate? Jerks. You know, arrogant bullies. I couldn't ever stand a bully. In fact, I would get in more fights, not only because of my mouth, but for sticking up for other poor kids and other, you know, little defenseless kids that were getting picked on. You know, I couldn't stand that either. When I saw someone big just picking on somebody and just slapping them around, it just made me sick. You know, who does stand up for the little guy? Well, you got to stand up for yourself first. And again, these people, they like them in the military. At his first high school near Los Angeles, he was bullied by black and Latino kids. That's when he first heard of Screwdriver, a band he calls the godfather of the white power movement. I became obsessed, he says. He had an image from one of Screwdriver album covers, a Viking carrying a staff, an icon among white nationalists, tattooed on his left forearm. Soon after, he had a Celtic cross, an Irish symbol appropriated by neo-Nazis, emblazoned on his stomach. At 15, Fogarty moved in with his dad at Tampa, where he started picking fights with groups of black kids at his new school. So by 15, he becomes the bully. You see how the psychology works? This kid, he just wants to hate. Get over your hate, guys. Seriously. I'm not Mr. Peacenik. I'm not Mr. Kumbaya. I'm not Mr. Let's hug it out. But let's be reasonable about it. Violence should only be used in the most extreme of circumstances. In the most extreme of circumstances, not because of the color of someone's skin or the religion that they happen to choose or the region they happen to reside in or originate from. But it doesn't matter. Our military loves it because these guys are juiced up and ready to kill. The military ran in Fogarty's family. His grandfather had served during World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, and his dad had been a Marine in Vietnam. At 22, Fogarty resolved to follow in their footsteps. I wanted to serve my country. Now, they say Army regulations prohibit soldiers from participating in racist groups, and recruiters are instructed to keep an eye out for suspicious tattoos. Before signing on the dotted line, enlistees are required to explain any tattoos. At a Tampa recruitment office, though, Fogarty sailed right through the sign-up process. They just told me to write an explanation of each tattoo, and I made up some stuff, and that was that. So they obviously warned him, listen, those tattoos are going to give you some problems. Just write down this, this, and this, and everything will be okay. Soon, he was posted to Fort Stewart in Georgia and became part of the 3rd Infantry Division. Fogarty's ex-girlfriend, intent on destroying his new military career, sent a dossier of photographs to Fort Stewart. The photographs showed Fogarty attending white supremacist rallies and performing with his band, Attack. They hauled me before some sort of committee and showed me the pictures, Fogarty said. I just denied them and said my girlfriend was a spiteful Bizinich. He adds, they knew what I was about, but they let it go because I'm a great soldier. Again, they like the killers. They like the people that are going to go in there. Here it is right here. Listen to what he says. This is what they love. I hate Arabs more than anybody. For the simple fact I've served over there and see how they live, he tells me. They're just a backwards people. Them and the Jews are just disgusting people as far as I'm concerned. Their customs, everything to do with the Middle East, is just repugnant to me. Need I say more? I mean, I could read you the 6-page article. I mean, he's not the only guy in the military rocking Nazi fatigues, into Nazism, into killing people. That's what they like. They like people that are going to take orders and kill brown people. I'll say it again. All right, let's jump to some more calls. Let's go to Mac in Alabama. Mac, you're on the air. Yes, sir.
Jason, pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
I enjoyed the working class hero coming into this because I was wanting to talk to you about some crazy hippie stuff, and John Lennon is a good man to talk about serious, crazy hippie stuff, right?
All right, all right. Even though that's a Green Day cover of it. I like both versions. Green Day version's pretty good.
Zeitgeist and Peter Joseph, I know you and Alex Jones don't seem to enjoy the points that are made in those films, but I want to
let me stop you. I really enjoy the first one, okay? I really do, and I even like the first section a lot more than a lot of people in the movement. Not because it says that Jesus Christ doesn't exist, but it really does show how sun worship and other pagan rituals and astrology was amalgamated into major religions, including Christianity, and it kind of gives you an overlook into the similarities and organized religion in general. So I love Zeitgeist, the first one. Second one is where I have problems.
The one that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, all right. Well, and again, I really like the first half of Addendum. It's the second half that I have big problems with. Go ahead.
Well, John Perkins, I'm sure you guys are familiar with his work.
In fact, John Perkins, let me just say, he's going to be in the second Obama deception film, and the Economic Hitman book is now making its rounds around the office as they gear up for that interview. So get ready for that in the next Obama film.
That's awesome. He's he gets right to the point of what, one of the major symptom of what's going on in our world and our society as a whole, and how money is used as this tool, as this weapon, because we allow one group of people to just print it. And so the solutions provided in Zeitgeist Addendum is what I think you guys have problems with, but I'd like to just say I think they're a good goal. I think they're a grand, optimistic,
but here's the thing, man. All right, it's kind of like, hold on, I don't think it's an overachieving goal.
Need to.
But listen, all right, here's the deal. Let me pose what he says, okay? Now, he says that scarcity is pretty much the root of all problems. Now, I will not argue that scarcity is a way to rise people up against one another. It's a way to keep people in turmoil, order out of chaos. I'm not saying that scarcity isn't used as a tool of the elites to provoke wars and whatnot. It absolutely is. But it is not.
It's the appearance of scarcity.
Well, it is kind of the appearance. Well, it is kind of the appearance because we could feed everybody. We could clothe everybody. We could put everybody in a home. There's no doubt about it.
Roll over, Bermas. That we could feed everyone is not a point that we can all just roll over. That's a
I agree. Listen,
big deal.
Listen, I think I am. First of all, I'm not against helping other nations. I'm not against working with other nations. Okay, but when you start talking about we need no government. Everybody has to live the same. Everybody's got to, if you look at those little videos that he puts in there, everybody's bald and, they're all in the same suit. That is the plan of the New World Order. They want a one world government. They want a one world society. And I don't think that that's the answer. And I'm going to tell you right now.
Point, Dan.